If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping! Well, hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 213 of the Yapping Yankees podcast, where we yap about the Yanks and nothing but those Yanks. As always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, here with you on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day of 2024. We had quite a bit of Sunday Yapping Yankees holiday episodes, and today is one of them, St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of those who celebrate out there. They say everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day, but yes, happy St. Patrick's Day to especially my Irish listeners and fans out there. I hope you have enjoyed the day and had enjoyed it, because by the time you listen to this, it'll either be the end of the day or, depending on what time of the week you listen, maybe it's already passed, but nonetheless, at the time I'm recording, the early 7 o'clock hour here in the evening on Sunday the 17th, it is still very much St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day to all of those who celebrate and all of my Irish friends out there. Aside from it being St. Patrick's Day, obviously I hope you are all doing well today. Another week of Yapping Yankees here, back on the weekly format, having a blast with it. Glad to be back here with you every single week as opposed to every other week in the off-season, which I'm also fine with, but obviously the more content and the more Yankees to talk about, the better. But it is St. Patrick's Day. It is also 11 days until opening day. Yes, gotta clap it up for that. Also, it is another day being quote-unquote stuck with Juan Soto. Blake Snell is still unemployed. Have I missed anything? I mean, my gosh, it is still so ridiculous. Everything that's going on in baseball, and to see that there are still pieces of top-tier talent like Blake Snell who are still unsigned. I don't mean to start the show with this, but I just think it's hysterical, and it's another thing amongst all the other things that I wanted to mention that's still going on here in mid-March. Or even past mid-March now, technically. But my goodness, guys, it is ridiculous that certain things are still going on when we are as close to opening day as we are. Which leads me to saying yet again, I cannot believe it is only Anthony Volpe days away. My goodness, 11 days. It's so close. Oh my God. I am so excited. And a lot of you might be asking, Mike, why are you so excited? Especially in light of the news that unfortunately dropped at the start of this past week. Well, yes, I am, of course, just generally excited when it comes to baseball being back and having games that count, because, yes, I have officially hit that threshold that I always say I do in spring training each year, where I've had enough of viewing games that do not count, and I'm ready for the games that do. I have far surpassed that threshold, at least as of a few days ago, shortly after the last time we spoke last Sunday. But since last Sunday, a lot has transpired in Yankee land, and almost none of it good, as a matter of fact. Yes, I think we all know what I'm talking about. So why not just get right to it? Obviously, this is not really a celebratory episode, despite how close opening day is. That'll much more so be reserved for next week, when it is a matter of days away, and we are much closer, and everything that has happened is hopefully a little bit more behind us at that point. But obviously a lot happened. Oh my God. It's unbelievable to me how we can never seem to manage to get our hands on nice things as Yankee fans when it comes to the injury department. What is the number one priority that I always come on to here saying throughout every spring training, every single year? It's the one thing that doesn't change, that I say every year. What is the number one priority when it comes to spring training? Ramp up? Incorrect. Get ready for the season? Incorrect. Even though, yes, that's important, obviously. What's the number one thing I always say? Have fun? Sure, but incorrect. The one thing I always say is, actually, it's two words that hold a lot of importance, actually the utmost importance. Those two words happen to be, let me get really close to the microphone when I say this, so I might overmodulate. Stay healthy. Sorry for the overmodulation if it did happen. But that's what I always say at the start of every spring training. Stay healthy. Might have overmodulated again. It's okay. Emphasis is important. That is not what happened this past week. I don't really know how else to say it. I mean, we all know what's going on. If you claim to be a Yankee fan and you don't know what happened this past week, then I would like to know how big the rock is that you are living under, because it must be quite remarkable. This past week, let's just get right into it, because not only are these two things the single biggest things happening in the Yankee community right now, but it happens to be just about the only things that people are talking about. That, of course, and of course it had to start at the very beginning of the week, right after we spoke, so just, after all the optimism, after all the fun we were having last week, definitely less than 24 hours later, of course, it just had to take a big old crap all over my parade and everyone else's parade. But it was revealed right on Monday that Gerrit Cole was having a little bit of trouble bouncing back after his first spring start. And it was really a minor thought in the back of my mind, and not many people were bringing it up much, but it was a little weird that Gerrit was really the only starter at the point of last week that had only had one start this spring, and you really hadn't seen much of him otherwise, and it wasn't really that great of a start at that. And a little part in the back of my mind was just like, I wonder why Gerrit hasn't started more games. We got our answers on Monday. It wasn't the answer we were looking for, but there were reports that after his first start, he was having more trouble than he should have, really bouncing back and getting ready for his second start. His arm almost felt like it seemingly was lagging behind in some sort of a way. Just wasn't responding the way it should or usually does. So he went to go get some tests done, and shortly after that it was revealed that the tests were on his elbow. Now, what is the first thing we always think about when it comes to the elbow? Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy John surgery. That's right. You're correct. So instantly, at the moment that I read this, my heart dropped to my right big toe upon hearing this. Now, the good thing was that when this first came out, not too long after that, it was said to at first have been precautionary. So they weren't very concerned. Now, it's tough to take the Yankees at their word because we know how many injury things they've gotten wrong. Now, I know certain injuries are not straightforward. It's very complicated, and you can't always have accurate information at the get-go. Sometimes the PR and the reporting of said injuries are abysmal, and it may even come across as lying sometimes. I have called the Yankees out on this many a time, but I know especially when it comes to pitching and elbows and whatnot, it's very tricky. So I'm trying to be patient here. They said it was precautionary, trying to be patient, all the while sweating through my clothing, virtually, with nerves. Because Gerrit Cole is the guy who, have I always said, for years now, two guys are the core of the Yankees. Gerrit Cole and Aaron Judge. I'm not forgetting about Juan Soto. I'm not forgetting about anybody else, Gleyber Torres, anyone else who holds a great deal of importance on this team. There aren't an unbelievable amount of people who hold that, but Gerrit Cole and Aaron Judge are certainly at the forefront. The Yankees ace that they were desperately looking for years, and the Yankee captain. They're the core of the team. So anything involving either of those two, and we're not done at Gerrit Cole. You thought we were done? Silly you. But anything involving either of these two will obviously take you close to a heart attack, virtually. So trying to remain patient. The first test results come out. And it's basically revealed that they do not see any tears in the ulnar collateral ligament, which is the UCL, which, of course, when there's a tear in there, even if it's partial, that's when Tommy John becomes a very real possibility. So the last thing you want to hear is tear or even partial tear. Certain pitchers, Masahiro Tanaka being one of them, have gotten by being very careful and have lived with partial tears. Doesn't mean you want one, certainly not, but he got by with one. But you still don't want to hear anything about any sort of a tear, minor or major, in the UCL. Fortunately, his first tests said that there were no tears. It was really just being hinted that there was inflammation, irritation, might be rest, and just rehabbing after that. And then it was said that Gerrit would be seeking another opinion from a well-renowned doctor in California who has treated a lot of former great athletes in the past, many which names I'm sure you've heard the last few days. But he decided to go to him for the ultimate and final opinion and gather everyone's thoughts on this and determine how to handle this moving forward. So, many days went by after this. I believe it was like Monday until like Thursday or Friday-ish. So a lot of days, us Yankee fans just nervously sitting on our hands, waiting for this highly anticipated feedback from California with the doctors there. Ultimately, it comes out that they came to the same conclusion, more or less, as the doctors that the Yankees had Gerrit see originally when it comes to looking at his elbow. There are no tears found. It's just inflamed. Nerve inflammation seems to be the terminology being thrown around right now. And it's going to be rest and basically just ramping up from there. Now, the interesting thing is there's a lot of feedback being given saying 1 to 2 months, 1 to 2 months. And then a lot of other people were saying after that it was 10 to 12 weeks. You're hearing a lot of 10 to 12 weeks more often than the 1 to 2 months now as of the last couple of days. And 10 to 12 weeks is about 2.5 to 3 months, give or take. Now, I know this sort of thing is tricky, so it's tough to get down a definitive timeline. And even Gerrit himself has really refrained from giving a specific timeline. But ultimately, it seems like all the doctors who examined Cole, whether it be doctors the Yankees had him see, or this other doctor out in California that's highly renowned, seems to be that everyone appears to be on the same page with all this. And as a matter of fact, I figured I'd do something for you here on the show today. For those who did not hear this interview, if you want to hear it from the man himself, figured I'd get this clip. I know I've been playing a lot more of it lately. Honestly, a lot of it's because a lot of me playing more clips lately stems from the fact that since I got this new computer, it runs so much better than my older one. It allows me much more time to get more creative and get myself a lot more clips to enhance the content in the show even more than before. So honestly, that has a lot to do with it. But also, just because there happens to be a lot of big stuff going on right now. A lot of big things happening. So I figured if you haven't heard the clip for yourself, nice little interview here at the S Network, then I figured I'd play it for you right here on the show. Hear it from Gerrit Cole himself. Why don't you? Straight from the horse's mouth. And that is definitely an appropriate expression for Gerrit Cole, because if anybody is a workhorse, not only for the Yankees, but in this entire sport, it is Mr. Gerrit Cole. You think about how durable this guy has been with the Yankees and how lucky we are to have had him be as durable as he has been. Very fortunate for that. But if you do want to hear him talk about it himself, and you have not already, on his interview with Mr. Justin Shackle, another one of my favorite broadcasters on the S Network lately, then here you go. Here is a clip with him and Justin talking about everything that transpired since the beginning of this, since the trip to California, and since he arrived back at Yankee camp yesterday. Take a listen for yourself.
Gerrit, I can imagine this has been a whirlwind week for you, trying to gather as much information as possible, but what were you feeling walking out of Dr. Elatrach's office upon receiving what he told you about your elbow?
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good. It was a good visit, and so feeling good.
Can you describe the difference in emotions you may have had on a 6-hour flight to LA compared to the 6-hour flight back to Tampa?
Yeah, it was a little different. I mean, you know, you're just sitting there trying to deal with a little bit of uncertainty, and then, you know, you get a better picture on the way home. It was. It's not something that I have, you know, had to do very often, but it's what a lot of guys have to go through all the time. So
what are the next steps for you?
Yeah, 3 to 4 weeks, no throw, rest and rehab, and go from there.
Is it full no rest in that 3 to 4 week period?
No, we're going to keep the arm live, keep it moving, keep it in shape so that we can hit the ground running when we're ready.
Can you at this point maybe pinpoint a timeline when you can be back on a mound?
No.
Too soon, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to take it one step at a time.
And throughout all this week, when you look at some of your teammates who may have some elbow issues in the past, how have they been able to guide you through this?
Well, they've just been really supportive, offering, some wisdom from their personal experiences, but mostly just encouragement and just putting their arm around me.
Glad to have the week behind you.
Yes.
Gerrit, thanks for the time.
Yes, thank you.
Man of few words, but enough words to get the point across. Mr. Gerrit Cole, that audio is obviously in compliments of the Yes Network. Great interview there. Some good insight there. Gerrit Cole giving some more details really as to the predicament here. It is good to hear him in higher spirits and really sounding more optimistic than anything, though. I just love the guy so much. But there's definitely some optimism there, and you could definitely hear that there is relief that this was not the worst-case scenario, as we are all feeling as well. But yeah, obviously, guys, when it comes to how this could have played out, I think it's safe to say that despite how much time the Yankees are going to be without Gerrit Cole, which is, of course, a crisis situation in of itself, I do not mean to downplay it whatsoever. This is a crisis. Trust me. Of all the potential scenarios that could have played out, worst case included, obviously, this is a win. Because if there was even a remote tear in here, Tommy John is automatically thrown around. Tommy John means season over. Whole season without Gerrit Cole, as opposed to a couple of months, and at the beginning of the year no less, as opposed to potentially at the end of the year during a playoff race, possibly. This is a win. I am devastated that we are going to be without our ace for months to start the year. I'm devastated. Please do not misunderstand me. I hate this more than I can even put into words. But when you factor in what could have been, this is a win. This is a W in my book. I'm predicting maybe around Memorial Day-ish comeback, if I had to say. And even Gerrit Cole himself said it's really tricky. He doesn't want to put a definitive timeline on it. He's taking it a day at a time, and I respect that and understand that. Especially with this sort of thing, it's very tricky. You got to be very careful when you're on your way back, especially when it comes to rehabbing and revamping your arm. He did say he was going to keep it live, but really no throw for about 3 weeks, as he said. And just getting back after that, revamping it up, going through a spring training per se once again. And then probably getting into some minor league rehab games after that, if I had to say, for some time. And then at that point, it could be June, for all we know. And then you're approaching somewhat the halfway-ish point at that juncture, which sucks. Listen, this whole thing sucks. Right away when it said getting an MRI on his elbow, even if it did come back clean, no tears or anything, I was saying to myself, he's probably still going to miss a decent amount of time, especially just for precaution, because they're fortunate it's happening now and not potentially later. And they're very fortunate there's no tear, so Tommy John surgery is not necessary, at least as of now, because we don't know what could happen later, unfortunately. This thing could fall apart on his way back with rehabbing. You never know. He could turn out to need more time no throwing or more time bringing his arm back up and revamping it up, and who knows. That's why I respect not wanting to get too in-depth with details on potential timelines, because it's very tough. You have to be very careful. That's why I heard elbow, and I'm like, even if there's no tear, there's still going to be a long time missed, and it sucks. This is really bad. I was saying before this all happened, for months, as you know, that the Yankees needed to add 2 arms. They got Stroman, and then I was saying one more, and then I'd feel real good. At this point, they hadn't before this Gerrit Cole injury popped up. And I was still a bit on edge, as you know. I was saying I still feel like their rotation's a little bit incomplete. A little bit. Could afford to add another arm. Now, with the ultimate test, Gerrit Cole, the leader of the rotation, the one who we always acknowledge, and rightfully so because of his durability and his ability, obviously, regular ability, typically. We were basically just, when talking about the rotation, popping him off as a sure thing. Because, hey, we've never really known him as much of anything but that. The vast majority of the time. But even he is not beyond the dreaded injury bug. And the worst possible person you could have chosen to miss a chunk of time. Yes, could it have been worse? Absolutely. But a chunk of time. One of the just two worst candidates you could have chosen for this has been chosen, and he is going down for months now. I would say for the better part of 2-ish months, which takes us maybe, as I said before, to around Memorial Day-ish. So this, I said they had to add an arm before this. Boy, do they ever now. My God in heaven. Not good, guys. You thought I was concerned before at the starting rotation. My goodness gracious me. And then, after that, or I should say alongside it, because it all came out around the same time. But around the same time as that, there was a report that came out that Aaron Judge was getting an MRI too, because he was feeling some soreness around his abs. There was a lot of panic at first. Could it be an oblique? It hasn't even started yet. Now the other of the two most important people on the entire team is going for an MRI before the season even freaking starts. Fortunately for him, the MRI on him came back clean. There is nothing wrong when it comes to a definitive injury being spotted in an MRI for Aaron Judge. Now, the interesting thing with this whole thing is that this was said right on Monday, just like with Gerrit Cole. It was said that he was just going to have a couple of days off and be back in the lineup on Wednesday. Wednesday comes, Wednesday goes, no Aaron Judge. So then they said he'll get some field work in, he'll do some BP, and he'll probably be out there by the end of the week. Or like Thursday-ish. Nope, no Aaron Judge. Then Boone and the Yankees say, well, he's scheduled to do some work on Friday, and if he does take part in that batting practice and the like out in the field, and if he does take part in that, then you will see him penciled into the lineup on Saturday. Does not really take part in it on Friday, not in the lineup Saturday or yesterday, not in the lineup today either. Here on Sunday for the game they played against the Red Sox at JetBlue Park. So where, oh where, is Aaron Judge? That's the question. So that's the real bizarre thing. They've changed the story about a couple of times now. Now, of course, everybody is accusing the Yankees of lying, and because of their misinformation with injuries that they've given to the public in the past, I can't really say I blame people for saying that. Now, Judge has said time and again that neither he nor the Yankees, neither side is concerned about this really. It's just precautionary. The goal is to be ready for opening day, and this ab soreness that he's been experiencing goes back to certain things he was doing in his program during the offseason. But the one thing I can say in defense of them and in defense of Aaron Judge is that I want to put a little reminder out to you guys, especially in light of Gerrit Cole, the other of the two most important candidates on the team, being out for months now. I want to remind everybody that it doesn't matter when Aaron Judge returns in spring training, so long as it's by opening day. Because you see, opening day is actually when it matters. Spring training games don't matter. Aaron Judge had a decent amount of spring training games under his belt for the first couple of weeks before this started to nag at him. I would say that especially since he took part in live games already, if he stays fresh now and does his drills when he can, He should be opening day ready when the time comes around, so long as this pain that he's dealing with allows him to be. And you could believe or not believe the Yankees all you want. I'm not going to crap on you for that. If you don't want to believe them and you think they're downplaying this thing, then more power to you. The truth is that we don't know for sure. None of us do unless you're within the organization yourself. I'm not, and I highly doubt anybody listening to this show is. If you are, then, well, hey, welcome. Thank you so much for listening and taking time to listen to me, of all people. I really appreciate it. But if you are a regular, just your regular person out there like me, just talking into this microphone, you don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. We can all have our beliefs despite the reports and whatnot, but the Yankees are claiming that there is really no concern here, and they're just being very delicate and making sure that he is opening day ready first and foremost. And that's all I care about. So hell, if the Yankees want to push him off for another 4 days, so long as he's in that opening day lineup and ready to go, I do not care. It's annoying to be jerked around like this, saying, oh, he's going to be in the lineup today, and then it doesn't happen, and you sort of have that hope stripped away from you. Yeah, I'm not going to deny that, and of course, after what happened with him last season because of the toe and whatnot, and seems like his body might be getting to him a little bit, it's okay to be nervous, and I'm not going to call you ridiculous for feeling nervous, but I do want to just put another reminder out there that all that matters is that he is ready for opening day. And if missing these games has no consequence on that, then I don't care, and neither should you. I need to remind you, these games don't count. As long as the person's game ready by opening day, especially with hitters, that's all that matters. Spring training is a lot more important for the whole ramping up process. It's a whole lot more important for the pitchers anyway. But if the hitter's ready to go with live pitching, it's all good. Just make sure they're healthy and ready by the time it actually counts. So that's my take on it. While it's annoying to hear that, oh, he's going to be ready for this or he should be ready for that, and even Aaron Boone sort of joked about it on the broadcast, I believe it was on Friday night I was watching. Yeah, it was Friday night when they were facing, I want to say the Pirates? Yeah, it was the Pirates. He even said on the broadcast, I haven't really been too good at predicting this sort of a thing. I'm like, yeah, Booney, you haven't. As you are not with many other things. But regardless, in any event, I'm not going to get too upset with it so long as he's ready for opening day. And even Aaron Judge has said to the media many times, we're taking this with an approach as if to just be ready for opening day. That's what they're prioritizing, and I'm okay with that. Will I be upset if by opening day it's revealed that something was much more wrong and it really just threw everything off course and he's not ready and might even miss some time? Yeah, I'm going to be pretty freaking livid at that point. You bet your ass I will be. But as of right now, if this is their approach and this is where they're still at, then I'm good. I'd rather hear clean MRI and really not concerned at all and just being precautious because the games don't count, rather than the abs are about to literally break off from his core and fall into his left leg, requiring him to miss the entire season and get abdominal surgery. I'd rather the former. Just like I'd rather the former in the Gerrit Cole situation. Now, this is horrible because it is two, again, of the most important people on the entire team. That's where this sucks. But where it is good is that in both cases, especially even more so the Judge situation, as this just remains a supposedly, reportedly, completely precautionary situation as of now, it would seem that we got amongst the best case scenario of both situations. Obviously, the best case would be neither of them missing any time at all, obviously. But given what could have been in both situations, the Yankees lucked out, especially in the Gerrit Cole one with dodging Tommy John surgery. I cannot tell you how massive that is in case you don't already know yourself. But I think it's safest to say that the episode title describes what these couple of instances really were. And I think it's plenty appropriate to refer to both of these as the closest of calls, given the magnitude of their importance and given what could have been with both of them and what would have resulted if you missed both of them for significant time. I shudder to even think about that. I really do. But if Judge is going to be opening day ready, and they could get Cole back by, I don't know, Memorial Day-ish. Some people seem to be talking more June, but if you're talking 2.5 months, I mean, Memorial Day isn't completely unrealistic. That also happens to be give or take the time that I'm expecting, even though people are pushing him to June or July. Based off the timeline and how fast he seems to be progressing, that's around the time I've also hinted as my personal opinion as to when Jason Dominguez could return. That'd be pretty awesome to get Cole and Dominguez back at the same time, don't you think? But Memorial Day-ish, that's doable. Are the Yankees going to have to get really creative and really cute and go through a really tough time without the leader of their staff? Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah. I don't care if it's even happening at the beginning, which is certainly better than it happening at the end. That's true. But they are still in dire straits without Gerrit Cole. I mean, come on. This cannot be denied. They are in some trouble. You could admit that while also admitting that this is a pretty damn good scenario to have played out compared to what could have been. Both can be true. Puts them into a precarious position. Maybe having more pressure to sign Blake Snell, get Jordan Montgomery back, trade for another pitcher, which will lead me to another piece of Major League Baseball news later on in the news segment. When it comes to another name that has been thrown around for months now when it comes to the Yankees, certain fellow White Sox pitcher, and I say fellow because of what happened just a few days ago, but nonetheless, could put more pressure on them to make yet another move, or maybe find a hidden gem within their own ranks and just hope for the best for the first couple of months, because if you're not going to add somebody, well, that's your next best hope if you're the Yankees, and they do have some promising-looking guys based off of spring training performances, which we'll continue to talk about as the show progresses, especially in the social media segment, which I'm sure, as you can imagine, directly has to do with the starting rotation, as so many have been for weeks now, because it is really the main talking point of discussion, being the biggest fault on the Yankee team, if I had to say, especially now in light of this Gerrit Cole news, even more so. So this will definitely continue to be a topic of conversation throughout the entire show. But yeah, things are just dandy. The Yankees have to go a couple of months without Gerrit freaking Cole now. Judge is going through this ab problem that you hope just stays as really next to nothing and results in him still being ready for opening day. And then you had another report coming out in the last, I don't know, like 10-ish hours saying that DJ, after fouling a ball off his foot yesterday, had to get x-rays. Fortunately, they came back clean, but with the way DJ's injuries have been and his, lack of production the last 2-3 years, well, it's just dandy. Everything's great. Everyone's just getting hurt. Why don't you just give the entire roster while you're at it, just to be extra safe? Can't hurt, right? Why don't you just give them all x-rays? Just to make sure they're all okay. Can't hurt. My God, it's like an infirmary in here. Oh my God, it's never enough. Just when you ask, when is it going to be enough? It's never enough. Never enough. It's like no escape. None. No escape. So just let's hope for the best. Let's hope Gerrit gets back as soon as possible. Let's hope this Judge thing stays to be nothing. I mean, DJ's x-ray came back clean. I mean, all things considered, hopefully he's back in there in no time. That's all you could really hope for, I guess. And away we go, guys. Onward and upward, I guess. Upward. That's a good one. Before the next piece of injury news hits us, listen, I don't mean to be pessimistic, but it's just what's thrown my way, guys. I don't wish for it. It's given. I just react, respond, give my insight to those who give half a crap, and I move on with my life. That's all I'm here for. So all I can hope for is that it just ends here, please God, especially with the starting rotation. It really cannot afford to lose another soldier. It really can't. I looked at it from top to bottom before Gerrit Cole even got hurt and was already on edge. Now I'm just damn near full on panicking. We don't know who they'll acquire to cover for it, if anyone, or who will step up ultimately, or how Gerrit Cole's recovery process will go. Again, anything can happen. It's touch and go. See where he's at after the no-throwing period comes up. I mean, by the time the no throwing period is done, there'll only be about maybe a week-ish into the season, and then we'll see where he's at when he starts to throw again. I'm sure there'll be plenty of reports about how his arm's feeling when he starts to progress a bit. And we'll just hope it goes smoothly, because it's not even a guarantee after that. I mean, who knows? It's just the worst nightmare. But at least it started off not being the worst possible scenario. That's the point of it all. But it did open up another can of worms. Because obviously with Gerrit Cole being available, he would obviously be your opening day starter and kick off the season. But it opened up another can of worms, because since he is no longer around, the questions started to arise throughout the Yankee community. Who will start opening day in his place in Houston, starting off that chaotic first series of the season in Houston opening weekend? Who's it going to fall to now? And it opened up a can of worms that, quite frankly, I don't even really see the need to have been opened, if I'm being really honest with you. Because, sure, it's cool to start the first game in the year, but to be honest with you, and I've never really even hit on this subject now that I think about it, because I don't even really think I've had to. No real instant like this one that I could recall from the past that would make me even have to talk about this sort of a thing. But I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't think it's a big deal at all. Now, some may disagree with me. I know there are a lot of people on sports radio who have said, oh, it's an honor to get the ball on opening day. You should be beyond proud to be able to do that for your organization. It's a good tradition. They've gone on. And here I am just saying, like, yeah, well, opening day is fun and it's great. Obviously, it's the first game of the season, symbolizing games finally counting again. Baseball is officially and fully back. I understand all of that. I agree with all of that. But if you really dumb it down, and you're in the position that the Yankees are in, and you have bigger fish to fry, to say the least, bigger worries to concern yourself with, at the end of the day, opening day is just the first of 162, guys. That's really what it is. You could get yourself involved in the pomp and circumstance and the tradition and how great it is to get the ball on opening day and making it bigger than it has to be. But when you really get down to it, opening day, again, is just the first game of 162. Does it really matter who starts on opening day? So long as your team is as intact as it could possibly be following spring training. And if it isn't it just important to do everything in your power possible to ensure that nothing gets even worse? Not screw around with anything unnecessarily? Because that's all I care about. Now, there are a lot of people who got awfully bent out of shape over something in particular with this subject this past week. It stems from none other than Marcus Stroman. Now, before you call me biased or a suck-up to the Yankees or Marcus Stroman, let me please remind you that as recently as when the Yankees acquired him and on many other occasions before that, I am no fan of Marcus Stroman, personally. Obviously, now that he's here, there's nothing we could do about it, and you just hope he does the best he can to contribute to the team as best as he can on their hopeful road to number 28. But when it comes to him as a person, and maybe this changes on his time as a Yankee, maybe it doesn't. But as of right now, personally, I am still no real fan of Marcus Stroman's. Sure, do I like a lot of the content and a lot of the hype that he's given with being a part of this team since his arrival? Yeah, I'm eating all that crap up. Can't lie to you. I've even said it's been really cool how excited he is to be here. Doesn't mean I'm a big fan of the guy yet. He's got a long ways to go with me. I always had huge issues with Marcus Stroman. I was not a fan of him, still not that big of a fan of him at all. So there is no bias or Yankee sucking up involved here when I say this. But the last few days, in light of this Cole news, especially when the Yankees early on had revealed that they don't think it's really wise to anticipate Gerrit Cole starting opening day at all, which, of course, especially after the official diagnoses, it's definitely not happening now. But the discussion was going on throughout the Yankee community. Well, who's going to start now? Who's going to start now? And the Yankees were going around asking, obviously. Apparently, the main man they asked, after it was revealed that Carlos Rodon would not be doing it, was apparently Marcus Stroman. And Marcus apparently, it sounds like, and again, we don't know how this went. Unless you're within the Yankees organization, we don't know how this went definitively. We just don't. But based off what I've been hearing, it sounds like he wasn't interested. Turned it down. A lot of people took issue with this. A lot of people just went, especially even on sports talk radio, on The Fan in particular. I couldn't believe the chaos that this stirred up. People saying, oh my God, he's a disgrace, he's selfish, he's who he's always been. You'll see that soon, Yankee fans. A lot of this coming from Met fans who, they themselves loved him at first, and I guess it didn't really end in the best of ways, so now the Mets fans aren't the biggest fans of him at all either anymore. Same thing with certain Cubs fans, and the Blue Jays fans seem to still be pretty okay with him, I guess, on the whole, but my God, are you guys forgetting that one of the biggest fan bases to have an issue with him prior to him coming here were the Yankee fans? With how many people he blocked and how hard he went after them, going after the front office, calling the fans feeble, saying they never learned their lesson. My God, if anybody had a beef with Marcus Stroman before coming here, it was the Yankee fans. We get it. So, listen, I understand. But, I mean, flaming the guy and torching him over this apparently rejecting to start on opening day or not being interested in doing so, I don't get it. I gotta tell you, I don't understand the vitriol here. Especially if the guy is on a sort of a schedule as we get closer and closer here. And he's lined up in a certain way to be ready to go on a certain day once the season actually officially begins. One could argue that in this starting rotation right now, as far as sure things are concerned, when it comes to question marks with injuries and whatnot and who could possibly perform at their best, it is not ridiculous to say right now that Marcus Stroman could very well be the most reliable guy in the rotation right now. Is that concerning to say heading into the season? Absolutely, that's where your starting rotation has come to. Part of that's beyond the Yankees' control because Gerrit Cole got hurt. What are you going to do? Injuries happen, as horrible as it is. But is that concerning to say? Absolutely. But is it the truth? I'd agree with it. And with Gerrit Cole already out and the Yankees' rotation being in as much peril as it's in, wouldn't you want to screw with as little as humanly possible when it comes to potentially throwing someone else's schedule off, someone as now as important as Marcus Stroman, when it comes to what they're already missing and risking potential further injury? Isn't that all that matters? And I know some people are saying, oh, well, some other people's schedules are going to be thrown off. Well, yeah, it's true. Someone's schedule's got to be thrown off. But given that unfortunate truth that Marcus Stroman at this point is probably the most reliable one with the smallest question mark next to his name when it comes to all the question marks in the starting rotation, I'm doing all I can to protect that arm and throw things off as little as possible with him. Now, some people are saying, oh, you're looking into it too deeply. It's just a matter of him being selfish. I mean, if it is a matter of not wanting to throw your schedule off and wanting to stay healthy and stick into the routine, especially if it comes to avoiding injury as best as possible, I would say that's looking out for the team and quite the opposite of selfish. Now, if it's just purely him not wanting to do it, then fine, whatever. But even so, in that case, I got to ask a serious question here. Who cares? Just a lot of unnecessary anger and vitriol being thrown around the Yankee community this past week over this, in my opinion, non-issue. I don't care who starts opening day. If I'm being really honest, I could not give a crap less who's on that mound on opening day. Now, of course, since then it has been announced that Nestor Cortez is the starting pitcher on opening day. And great, good for him. I hope he goes out there and throws a gem. Awesome. Probably got his schedule thrown off quite a bit, sure. But he seems to be okay with it. Yankees seem to be okay with it. I'm protecting the arm, in my opinion, with the smallest question mark next to it, being Marcus Stroman. And I don't really even care who's on that mound, to be honest with you, because again, I want to remind everybody that amidst all their anger and frustration over this, which I feel is a complete and utter waste of time, it is just the first game of 162. Let's regain some perspective here, people. It's not that big of a deal. And again, you know there's no bias or Yankee sucking up going on here because I'll be the first one to rightfully criticize the Yankees if it warrants it. And I am no fan, personally, of Marcus Stroman because of the past, as of now at least. So there is no bias involved here. This is my genuine opinion. And even if there was a little bias, I always do my utmost to give my absolute objective opinion on everything on this show. Even if this is a Yankees podcast, I still feel responsible to give my unbiased, objective opinion on everything. So I am not BSing here. I truly believe that all this arguing that was going on in the Yankees community, I even put out a tweet about it, and it got some people, most people reasonably agreed with me, thankfully, but it got some people fired up saying, oh, he's selfish and this and that. I just think it's a non-issue. Got to be really honest with you. I do not think it's an issue at all. If Bro's going to start the home opener, if he has an intention of starting another game in the Houston series or a game in the series after that, in the Diamondback series, I believe it is, after the Houston series, then fine. Let it happen. But Marcus Stroman right now, for me, has the smallest question mark next to his name amongst all of the rest of the starting pitchers. I'm protecting his arm more so than anyone's right now. Now, that's not to say that he's my number one in the rotation, because quite frankly, he's not. And we'll get to that later. But when it comes to who's the most important to protect and the most reliable, given veteran status, and least likely to get injured, and most likely to give a quality performance, when you weigh all those factors, guys, it's probably Marcus Stroman right now, whether you like it or not. I don't like it. I want that man to be Gerrit Cole, obviously. But Cole's not around. So right now, it's probably Marcus Stroman. And if you deny that, well, I'd love to hear who you think is more so than that. Whether or not you expect Carlos Rodon or Nestor to be better, you really can't say that they are better options given last season and what happened with the both of them with injuries and really poor performing when they weren't injured. When they were actually pitching. Yeah, Marcus had the second half that he did last year, but on the whole, come on. So, I really thought that whole can of worms thing that was opened up over who's starting opening day and the outrage over Stroman when he apparently wasn't interested in doing so, I just think that it was a complete waste of time and energy for everybody. A complete non-issue. Everybody's saying, oh, if an old-time manager like if Billy Martin or anybody else of aggressive nature asked them to do so, then they would have certainly been punished by not being able to pitch for a while. They'd have been fined. They would have disciplined this and that and the other thing. First of all, it's not those times anymore. This is not the kind of organization anymore to be doing that. So it is what it is there. Doesn't matter what would have happened. It just doesn't. When it comes to this particular instance. Secondly, it would be stupid to do that as long as the guy hasn't definitively done anything wrong. He's not hurt anybody. He's not imposed physical harm against anybody. Has not said anything completely out of line to anybody. Or out of line at all. He hasn't really done anything wrong as of right now, Marcus Stroman. So, what good would it get you to take starts away from him and discipline him or do anything foolish when the starting rotation is already in the peril that it's in? What are you doing for yourself if you're the Yankees? It's a matter of an opening day starter. Relax, bro. It's the first of 162. It's not like you're talking about who's starting the first game of a 3-game wild card series. It's opening day. Even if it doesn't work out as well as it potentially could have if Marcus started, guess what? It's the first game. They could bounce back the very next day, and even their record at 1, the world will still be spinning. It is a non-issue, people. We need to direct our passion, frustration, and anger where it is actually warranted. This is not one of them, I promise. If you are one of the people out there who are fired up about this thing, I do not mean to belittle your feelings. I don't. But it's really objectively not that important at all. Who starts the first game of the year? Especially given the current predicament the rotation's in right now, I could give a crap less about tradition or honor to start the first game. It's the first game. And Nestor's still a plenty fine option for the first game, so just let it happen. He seems to be eager to do it. It's all good. It's all good. Let's just make sure everybody stays healthy, especially the most important arms in the rotation, huh? That's what I'm prioritizing. That's what I'm driving my energy towards. Not being frustrated because Stroman didn't want to throw his schedule off, and he's not interested in starting opening day because of that. Let's gain some perspective, people. So yeah, as you could hear, a lot of chaos this past week as a result of all this bad crap happening. That's for sure. But no doubt that this past week, contained the closest of all kinds of calls with this madness. I know we are already almost an hour into the show, which I cannot believe, but yeah. I mean, if these topics weren't going to be taking up most of today's show, given what happened this past week, then I don't know what would have. It's only appropriate. So, let us keep going with Yankees news, guys. That's all the stuff. With Gerrit Cole, absolutely devastated, although very grateful that nowhere near the worst case scenario played out, at least as of now. Let's hope it stays that way. Can't predict this stuff. Same thing with Judge. Let's hope he's just ready for opening day. And DJ and everybody else that has these little things happening to them. So absolutely devastated over Cole especially. Everything else, let's hope it stays even keel, please. I just can't do this anymore. About to throw in the towel, guys. And it's not even the regular season yet. But there is more news to cover, particularly some roster stuff taking place. Let's get to it. Tuesday was the start of some further roster announcements as far as reassigning to camp, minor league camp that is, and optioning back down to AAA. Well, it started on Tuesday. Carlos Narvaez was optioned back down to AAA. Also reassigned Dwayne Underwood Jr. and Josh Van Meter to minor league camp on Wednesday, and the same with Mosqueda, the lefty pitcher, on Wednesday as well. I believe I pronounced his last name right. On Friday, well, that was the day that it was announced that Nestor was the opening day starter. So again, reiterating, Nestor Cortez Jr. will be the opening day starter. Yesterday, the roster news continued. Yankees optioning Cody Morris, the right-handed pitcher, to AAA. Good move there. And reassigned lefty Anthony Misevich to minor league camp. He has had a brutal spring. He has looked really bad, so I'm okay with that. Still good to appear in spring training games for now. But, yeah, has not done very well with that. And Everson Pereira today was also optioned to AAA, so that's big news as well. Everson Pereira not making the opening day roster as of now. You're more likely to see someone of the ilk of Oswaldo Cabrera, maybe even a Jahmai Jones, especially with Oswald Peraza still out for the foreseeable future. So we'll see which guys continue to make the opening day roster as it continues to get closer and closer. I more or less gave my opening day roster about a week or two ago, I believe. I can't remember which specific episode. But you could also see other potential names in on it, like Yorbeat Vivas and whatnot, and there are plenty of names to go around that we could talk about who could make the roster, but we'll see what the Yankees come up with the final product when opening day arrives, or at least a couple of days before, obviously. So that's really all of the news from this past week when it comes to the Yankees. All the peril that took place and whatnot, all the chaos. Around Major League Baseball, what I had hinted to earlier, former White Sox pitcher, big trade announced between the White Sox and the Padres, Mr. Dylan Cease, who was a name thrown around a great deal when it comes to who the Yankees could have acquired to help out the starting rotation. And I touched on him a little bit some weeks ago. Well, his name started to be thrown around the media again, especially amidst everything going on with Gerrit Cole. Reports alluded to the fact that the Yankees reached back out to the White Sox as they had done in prior months, and seeing what they could do in order to potentially swing a Dylan Cease trade. Well, it didn't end up going down, and instead, he is headed to San Diego. And one of the trade pieces I thought was really interesting, heading back to the White Sox in exchange for Dylan Cease, was the guy that the Padres actually only just acquired from the Yankees in the Juan Soto trade. Drew Thorpe is headed right back to the American League, in the minors, obviously, but he's headed to the White Sox. So the Padres, one of the promising young pitching arms that they had acquired from the Yankees in the Juan Soto and Trent Grisham trade, well, they flipped him right to Chicago for Dylan Cease. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But that's a done deal. Dylan Cease will not be a Yankee, at least as of right now. Who knows what will go on going forward. So chaotic, all this baseball crap. But as for now, he is with the Padres, which is crazy. And I saw a lot of people, a lot of Yankee fans out there going after the Yankees hard over that. And I got to say another thing, I just don't get it. If you heard me talk about my opinions with Dylan Cease, and a lot of people were a bit surprised to hear this. I don't know why, but they were. But I made my opinions on Dylan Cease more than clear. Now, Cease has good stuff, and he's been a 200-plus strikeout guy for multiple seasons in a row now. Those are his positives, for sure. No denial there. But I got to be really honest with you. For the packages that the White Sox were requesting, when it comes to Cease and a potential Corbin Burnes trade, you heard Spencer Jones' name thrown around an awful lot. Now, he's the Yankees' number 1 or 2, technically number 2, since I guess Jason Dominguez is technically still number 1. But basically at the top of the Yankees prospect list. That's the point I'm trying to make. Now, on baseball's top 100, around the same level as Drew Thorpe, if my understanding is correct. Taking a quick peek now. Yeah, Spencer is at right now, at least, as of right now, at number 84. And Thorpe is at 85. So on the top 100, they're around the same value. But nonetheless, on the Yankees prospect list, Spencer Jones was of more importance. So they requested him in both situations. The Brewers with Corbin Burnes and the White Sox with Dylan Cease. I do not think, even if people want to compare or contrast his worth, Spencer Jones' worth, to Drew Thorpe or any others on Major League Baseball's top 100, I'm not giving up Spencer Jones for Dylan Cease. I mean, maybe a more of an argument, even though I still probably wouldn't do it depending on the circumstances, more of an argument could be made for Corbin Burnes, even though, yes, he's been on a sort of downturn himself in a way. But you have Corbin Burnes' reputation definitely speaks for itself, more so than Dylan Cease, I would say. Especially for Dylan Cease, I got to be honest with you. I have thought for a while now, ever since the discussion on him was really red hot, throughout the baseball community, throughout the Yankee community, so on and so forth. I'm sorry, I think the guy is overrated. I've said it before and I'll say it again. He just came up in 2019, and yes, and only in 14 starts, he was adjusting to the league and whatnot, all that. ERA near 6. 2020 shortened season, make of that what you will. 4 ERA, I don't really count that. 2021, an ERA hovering around 4 again, 391. 2022 is really the season where a lot of his hype is centered around, because 220 ERA in 32 starts, 184 innings pitched, walked a lot of guys, yeah, but 227 strikeouts, 220 ERA, and really had a stellar season. Really did. And then last year he fell off again, 4.5 ERA, 4.58. And yeah, 200 strikeouts at least again. But also in that amount of starts, in 33 starts, 177 innings. You'd expect around 33 starts to get you closer to or around, or maybe even over 200 innings. So, talking about a certain amount of innings per start, on average not being great either, which is the whole controversy around Blake Snell too. My point is, Dylan Cease has more iffy or bad seasons, far more than good seasons. Has good stuff. Has 2022 to reference to. High strikeout numbers, yeah. Just about everything else, I believe, has him to be way overrated in the eyes of a lot of people. I mean, people are talking about this guy as if he would be the savior of the Yankee rotation, and I just think that's silly. I don't think he's that good. He has good attributes about him, good stuff, I'll admit all that. But the way certain people paint him to be like the next savior of any rotation he's to join, I'm sorry, I just don't agree when it comes to the numbers. It can be totally different when it comes to him actually playing for that team. There are more factors to the game than just numbers. I've always said that. But I think in the eyes of many, with the way a lot of people talk about him, I think he's way overrated. So to be honest with you, especially because, I mean, the Padres had to flip Drew Thorpe and others for Dylan Cease. I'm not so sure that that's worth it. And I'm definitely sure that it wouldn't have been worth it to have to give up Spencer Jones for him. So honestly, him going to San Diego, especially because of the fact that he's in the other league now, I'm fine with it. I don't really care. My eyes are set on what's going to happen in other particular guys, like Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. Now, is it silly that Jordan Montgomery is still unsigned, especially considering the season he had last year and the impact he had in the postseason with the Rangers championship campaign? Yeah, I believe that's very silly too. But the man I'm obviously looking much more so at is the National League Cy Young Award winner, whose agent clearly, laughably misread the market. And obviously with Blake showing some arrogance and cockiness himself, I find that hysterical that we are now on St. Patrick's Day, with opening day being a week and a half away, and he is still unemployed. I just think it's amazing. And there's even more talk this past week. Oh, he's talking to the Astros. The Dodgers are being more in on him now and could add him to the rotation on top of all the additions they've made to their team this offseason. But even more so, the Astros, I mean, at first I took that as possibly a way to put more pressure on the Yankees or potentially others, with Boris feeding the media, oh yeah, my client's now talking to the Astros, so you might want to get more serious about this, sort of a thing. We know that Boris has had the tendency to use the media in that sort of way in the past. But just more so on the Scott Boras is definitely occasionally bad for baseball campaign. It is continuing even more so here because there are more reports that I saw on Twitter today with Blake Snell talking to the Astros. Apparently he wants like a 2 year, he'd be willing to do a short-term deal. 2 years, $66 million with an opt-out option after this year. I'm like, my God. And the Astros apparently balked at it. Like, he's just having no luck because they will not lower the asking price. Yeah, it's a change being willing to go to short-term, but still, those conditions in that contract, bro, nobody's taking you. And the season is starting in a week and a half. I don't care to hear, oh yeah, he's ramping up normally, he's practicing, he's doing his drills. He still doesn't have a place to call home. And he's not participating in major league live at-bats in spring training like pitchers should be doing in order to properly and safely prepare for the regular season to the best of their ability. I don't want to hear all that he's doing on the sides. It's still not all that he should be doing. I wouldn't be comfortable with starting him the first week of the season if I signed him. Going this late into spring training, this close to the regular season, still not having a place to call home. That's what really matters. Still unemployed. March 17th, people. The whole Blake Snell thing is far even surpassed a clown show at this point. I have ran out of words to use to describe what this situation has morphed into at this point. It's remarkable to me that this is still going on at the magnitude that it is this late into things. Absolutely incredible to me. But yeah, so he's still unsigned. Who knows where he's going? The Astros, the Dodgers, the Yankees. Who the hell knows? I'm just going to reiterate what I've said for weeks on end now. Just pick a freaking place already, bro. You come to the Yankees, great. It'd certainly be a help here despite your flaws to not really go deep into games, especially considering you have really compromised your spring training at this point, going unemployed for this long. But eventually you could help, especially in Gerrit Cole's absence, and who knows how nice of a combination it could be at the top of that rotation when and if he returns. And if he is the Gerrit that we know and love when he returns, it's also another factor, unfortunately, when it comes to injuries that keep you out for months at a time. But just pick a place, dude. Pick. I'm tired of reading about it. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of everything about it. Just pick a place. Be reasonable and pick a place. That's all I could say about that. And that's really all the news that there is from this past week. All the crazy talk, all the crazy happenings as opening day draws more and more near to us, guys. We're just going to breeze through the takeaways of what happened with this past week's spring training games because we are well past an hour into the show now, and we still have a social media segment to do as well. So let's just talk about what happened this past week going back to Monday, where the Yankees actually had a split squad day. One of the games at George M. Steinbrenner Field was when the Yankees took on the Orioles, and Will Warren started this game. He actually looked pretty good. 3 innings of 1-run ball, giving up 3 hits. He unfortunately walked 3 guys, so that's not great. But 2 strikeouts as well. Clay Holmes pitched a scoreless inning after that, allowing 2 hits. Ian Hamilton pitched 2 scoreless innings. Cody Morris got bombed a little bit, has not looked great this spring. And the offense put up 5 runs, thanks to Mr. Trent Grisham, walking with the bases loaded. Austin Wells clearing the bases on a 3-run double as his awesome spring continues of late. And Brandon Lockridge driving in a run by grounding into a double play, resulting in the Yankees 5 runs and getting the win 5-3, giving Will Warren the W. The other game took place in Clearwater against the Phillies. Yankees on the road, obviously. This game was a lot quieter when it comes to scoring. Clayton Beeter started this game. I was talking about being interested in seeing how he starts this game, considering he's showed a little bit of command issues in his prior start. Well, he cleaned up his act in this one, guys. 4 shutout, only 2 hits, no walks, and 4 strikeouts as he continues to show he's got killer put-away stuff still. Peter's got some potential, guys. I cannot believe that we got this guy for Joey Gallo. Oh, my God. What a steal. Good Lord. Thank you, Dodgers. Luis Gil pitched as well after that. 3 2/3 shutout, striking out 8 guys. Only allowing 1 hit and 1 walk. And we got a lot to talk about with Gil in the social media segment, but my God, what a good outing there. Misavich came in, pitched an inning, walked 2 guys, gave up 2 hits, gave up another run, has just continued to not look good. Obviously, to this point, he's been reassigned to minor league camp, but nonetheless, big stories here. Beeter and Gil both looked terrific. And when it comes to scoring, it was just on a 2-run shot by Oscar Gonzalez in the top of the 8th. And the Yankees got the 2-1 W, so they won both games of the split squad. Tuesday came around, they got shellacked by the Blue Jays. 8-1 was the final score. Nearly every pitcher the Yankees sent in this game gave up a run. Was not great. So that was where all the scoring took place. And as far as the Yankees scoring, just in the top of the first day, Jose Rojas, RBI single, driving in Grisham was their one and only run. They lost 8-1. Wednesday started off promising when it comes to how the Yankees and Red Sox game began. This one was really the one that I was looking really forward to watching because Carlos Rodon was starting this one. And he looked really good. I mean, the only blemish on this game for him was a solo shot in the top of the 4th. And I can't deny it, a bomb at that by Tristan Casas. Other than that, Rodon looked really good, guys. The velo was there as opposed to the prior start, where he was averaging about 93 miles an hour. Now, at this point, he was really hovering around 95 to 96, peaking at that, and really just hanging around 95 mainly. So the velo is better, more life to the fastball, breaking stuff solid, striking out 3 in 4 innings, and that home run being the only hit he even gave up, let alone the only run. No walks, so much better control, much better life on the fastball. Looked much, much better in this start. Encouraging by Rodon there. And things didn't really fall apart until Mosqueda came in later on in the game and just gave up 5 runs and all came pouring down at the end, and the Red Sox ultimately scored a total of 9 runs. So that wasn't pretty. But it was really good at first. Anthony Rizzo starting the game off in the bottom of the 1st with an RBI single. And then by the time Rodon was done after the bottom of the 4th, Volpe had hit a 2-run double, driving home Rizzo and Giancarlo, making it 3-1. And the Yankees were in good shape. But then the pitchers after that really couldn't hold it down. Red Sox started to put up a lot more runs. Glaber also hit a solo shot in the bottom of the fifth, made it 4-2 at that point, and the Red Sox really took over after that, winning 9-4. But Rizzo, RBI single. Glaber with a solo bomb. He's been hitting more home runs of late, looking better. I had a feeling that would start to come around. I like seeing that. Rodon looking terrific. So some good takeaways, but final score, no good. Thursday, Yankees got completely shut out. No scoring whatsoever by the Tigers on the road. Only got 3 hits the whole game. One by Verdugo, one by Grisham, and one by Oswaldo. And starting this game was Marcus Stroman. And again, he looked pretty bad. So 4 starts now. And 2 have looked really good. 1 not so good. And 1 pretty bad. This one being the pretty bad one. But also, again, like in the first one, not really too helped along because the Yankee defense was sloppy. Oswaldo had a blemish at shortstop, and even surprisingly so, Marcus himself had a blemish with a throwing error as the pitcher, and we all know how good of a defender Marcus Stroman is on the mound. He's a Gold Glove defending pitcher, so that was surprising to see. But some errors obviously added to it, but ultimately the final line for Stroman was 4 1/3, so we went decently into the game for spring training. 7 hits, though, 3 walks, 5 runs, 4 of them earned. Did strike out 4, but not ideal. And plus the home run given up in the second inning to Kerry Carpenter. So probably his worst spring start. Now, definitely his worst spring start. So not great there, but I can't have every single one being good. So 7-0 there. Friday, Pirates and Yankees. This was the one that I really mainly tuned into, especially for the injury news on Cole and Judge and whatnot by Boone and everybody else. But the Yankees even managed to lose this one 6-2. Obviously, it doesn't matter. Spring training games don't count, but the record is not great. But again, who cares? Starting this game was Clark Schmidt. And for the most part, Clark looked pretty good. The Pirates did get on the board first in the third inning on a Brannigan solo shot, Jack Brannigan, but then Glaber immediately tied it up in the bottom of the fourth with a solo shot of his own. Another homer for Glaber. So Clark kept them in it pretty nicely in 3 1/3. Struck out 5, gave up 5 hits, only the 1 run, walked nobody, and managed to wiggle out of trouble a few times, so that was nice to see. But overall, a decent start for him. Really, the only one who imploded in this game was Anthony Misevich later on when the Pirates scored 4 in the 7th inning. But that was really all, and the Yankees only scored that 1 run by Glaber in the 4th on his solo shot, and then all the way in the 9th on a force-out ground ball by Everson Pereira, driving home Vivas, but that was it. So the Yankees lost 6-2 that day. Yesterday against the Blue Jays, this one was a wild one, especially towards the end. 10-9 final, the Yankees ended up grabbing the W, but my God, the Blue Jays making a hell of a comeback there in the 8th inning. And the Yankees scoring 2 more to retake the big lead they once had in the bottom of the 8th to take a 10-9 lead and then finishing it off in the 9th inning. Crazy. Starting this game for the Yankees, though, in this one was Luis Gil. And I got to be honest with you. More props to Luis Gil, man. If you've been listening to me for some time, you would know that prior to his Tommy John, I very much liked Luis Gil. He definitely had some control and command issues and had trouble keeping his pitches under control more so than anything, but his stuff itself is electric. Always showed a great deal of potential. And then obviously it really hurt him to have to go down with Tommy John surgery. He's been down for a long time and now working his way back finally. But in this one again, after his prior outing of, I think it was a 3 2/3 outing, just striking out 8. My God. And he looked pretty good in this one too. 3 1/3, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. Looked really good. So more really encouraging signs for him. Clay Holmes came in, went 2/3 of an inning, allowed a run, 2 hits, 1 strikeout. And then after that, honestly, every Yankee pitcher except for Velasquez did not look good. Everybody gave up at least a run, except for Victor Gonzalez, too. So not great. That's how the Blue Jays were able to mount their massive comeback towards the end there. But as far as Yankees runs scored, yeah, Jahmai Jones getting them on the board first with an RBI single. That's good to see, considering some people are talking about him potentially making the roster as a depth piece. We'll have to wait and see. Very interesting to see what the Yankees' final product will be come opening day for the roster. And then after that, for the next 2 runs, I even gathered a clip here because of how hyped I am to have finally seen this, but a certain other man, when it comes to talking about homers by Glaber or otherwise, a certain other man made his presence known by going deep for the first time in spring, which I have been eagerly awaiting since his transformation over the offseason. Audio, obviously, courtesy of the Yes Network. Take a listen as to who it was.
Well struck. Out to left center and gone. Wasted no time. Giancarlo Stanton, his first home run of the spring, punishing that baseball. It's a 3-0 Yankees lead.
116 off the bat. Oh, my goodness. 116. That's the Giancarlo I know. Just thrashed it to left center field. My God, I can't believe the seams are still on that damn ball. But I know a lot of people may be, thinking me foolish celebrating a spring training home run by Giancarlo. But hey, I've been waiting for his first one since the transformation. And seeing how it would still jump off the bat when he got a real good hold of it, I'm encouraged by what I see. That's all I can say. But even more so than that, I mean, listen, in case you missed the prediction episode, you may recall what I predicted for Giancarlo. However foolish or stupid you think I am for spouting off these kind of predictions for him, given how his career has majorly been with the Yankees for the most part. Obviously, he's had his good moments, he's had his healthy moments, but he has surely had his highly injured moments and vast underperforming performances that he is greatly ashamed of, particularly last year. So some people may call me foolish, but I have gone out on a limb for Giancarlo this year, man. I have really put a lot of, some people would say, irrational faith in him. But I'm the one who came on here and said at least 140, 145 games played and getting back to 40 home runs. And speaking of the boldness in that statement, he has not even played 140 games in a season, I believe, since 2018, I want to say. I think he played somewhere really close to like 139 or something back in 2021 when he was mostly healthy. But still, point being, still hadn't officially hit that plateau. But my God, this is very encouraging to see from someone who is putting a lot of eggs in Giancarlo Stanton's basket for 2024. Some may say irrationally or stupidly, but hey, I'm doing it. So, I am hyped to see that ball jump off the bat of Stanton the way that it did, and I'm really happy to finally see him homer for the first time this spring. People say, oh, it's what he's mostly known for. Don't applaud him. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and it's just an exhibition game. Well, listen, I'm going to be hyped. I'm expecting a lot out of him. I'm predicting a lot out of him. I'm going to be excited. What can I tell you? I'm still one of the frighteningly few people still believing in this guy because I appreciate the work that he's so obviously put in this offseason to try to improve himself the way that he has tried. So, again, I am here believing in him and rooting for the guy. I mean, what do we have to lose, guys? Think of how much more sick the lineup becomes if he is the true Giancarlo Stanton that we know that he should be. So, hey, crucify me. What can I tell you? Isaiah Kiner-Falefa even got an RBI single in this game. Funny to see him in the Blue Jays uniform yet again. But Oscar Gonzalez also had an RBI single of his own. DJ scored in a wild pitch. Rortvedt scored in a wild pitch. Greg Allen, 2-run triple. So he got to turn on the Jets a bit. Then the Blue Jays made their crazy comeback. And then Escara at the end, bottom of the 8th, 2-run shot. Driving home Jeter Downs as well, putting them up 10-9 and winning a wild one at George M. Steinbrenner. So that was crazy. And then in today's game in JetBlue Park, well, it was a slaughtering for a while. The final score was 12-6, so the Yankees actually managed to put 6 up on the board. 3 in the 4th because of a 3-run triple by Mr. Kevin Smith. And then the rest weren't until later on in the top of the 8th. On an RBI double by Oscar Gonzalez, and then TJ Rumfield getting a 2-run single in the top of the 9th when it was far too late, obviously. But main story of today was the Yankees getting absolutely shellacked, getting shelled by the Red Sox. Starting this one was Will Warren, going 2 2/3, giving up 6 hits, not walking anybody, giving up 6 runs, but the key to it, thanks to some more key errors here, Only 2 of them were earned. So take of that what you will. 5 strikeouts, and he did give up a home run, though, to Mr. Trevor Story in the bottom of the first. 3-run shot. So that's not great, obviously. But even one of those was unearned thanks to Mr. Kevin Smith at shortstop. And then a Rafael Devers single, and then a Trevor Story home run. You get the picture. Ultimately, Yankees lose 12-6, and that was all for this past week's games. A lot of chaos. But going forward for this next week, in case you want to know when the games are and when you'd like to potentially be able to tune in and whatnot, last full week of spring training here, guys, leading up to Palm Sunday next Sunday. Last full week of spring training. Tomorrow's game at 1:05 Eastern will be the Phillies and Yanks at George M. Steinbrenner. Again, 1:05 Eastern tomorrow, Monday the 18th. Carlos Rodon will be back on the mound once again, and this game will be available on Yes, and therefore the Yes app as well. So we'll be able to tune into that as long as you have Yes or the Yes app. Tuesday, Yankees are not playing. They're off. Wednesday, the 20th, will be a 6:35 Eastern game, another night game at George M. Steinbrenner against the Pirates once again. Starting pitchers are yet to be announced, but this game will be available on Yes as well, so another televised game. Thursday, 1:05 Eastern, in Northport, Florida, on the road against the Braves. This game will apparently be available on the Yes app, so if you have that, then you'll be able to tune into this game as well. No starters announced for that one yet. Also, Friday the 22nd, Yankees and Mets at George M. Steinbrenner. So be sure to tune into that. That ought to be fun. Game available on Yes. No starters announced either. Saturday the 23rd, the Yankees will be having another split squad. Both games at 1:05 Eastern. Saturday the 23rd. One of them will be at the Tigers Stadium in Lakeland. This game will be available to listen on the Fan, but it will not be available to watch at any capacity. 1:05 Eastern. Also 1:05 Eastern, the Yankees and Phillies at George M. Steinbrenner. No starters obviously announced for this either. And this game will be available to listen on the Fan and will be available to watch on the Yes app. And last but not least, before we move on to the social media segment to wrap up today, next Sunday the 24th, when we speak next, the Yankees have another split squad. But there's actually a little bit of a catch to this one because, well, one of the games is the Yankees playing against the Pirates on the road at 1:05 Eastern against the Pirates, and the game will be available on the Yes app and on the Fan for listening. But the other game at 4 o'clock is not against another Major League club, but it is instead in Mexico City. This is that cool game in spring training that we've heard the Yankees talking about here and there. Well, this is the game, so be sure to tune into that next Sunday afternoon at 4 Eastern. I am going out to lunch for my stepmom's birthday at some point next Sunday, so it'll be interesting to see when I find time to record next week. But nonetheless, I will still find my time, and there will be 2 interesting games to watch next week, and we're really just one, the Mexico City game. The other one just against the Pirates, it is what it is. But so you got another split squad. So the Yankees having multiple split squads next week and back-to-back days. So eventful action going on next weekend, and that's the deal with that. And the Yankees also will be playing in Mexico City again on Monday. So they'll be playing 2 games in a row there. So that's pretty interesting. That'll be fun to watch. So that's that, guys, what to expect over the course of this next week as far as the games. Now let us move on to the final part of the show, as always, the social media segment. As you could probably guess, considering the major points of discussion this past week, yes, it is about the starting rotation. Another open-ended question, as a matter of fact. What does your starting rotation look like now without Gerrit Cole for a while? Now, me personally, I've obviously spoken at length about the starting rotation this episode, so I'll try not to repeat myself all too much before moving on to your answers here and reading at least a few before we wrap up here. But despite Nestor being the opening day starter, this would still be the order that I do, even with him starting off the season on opening day. My ideal rotation, and this might surprise some people considering, again, what I said about Marcus Stroman earlier, about him being the next biggest sure thing behind Cole, if I had to say. But my rotation ideally would be Rodon, Stroman, Nestor, Schmidt, Luis Heel. Now, Rodon being number one, because not only am I betting on him to have a nice bounce back too, based off of what I predicted for him, but I've also said that it is now about time that Rodon be the man they paid for, number one. And number two, and I also said this past week on Twitter, to many people's agreement, because it is objectively the truth, if there ever was a time for Carlos Rodon to win absolutely everybody over and have the chance to do that, it is now. With Gerrit Cole down for a couple of months, the Yankees needing as close to a clear-cut leader as possible from anyone in this rotation, someone to majorly step up as much as humanly possible in Cole's absence. My God, can anyone name an instance before this that gave Carlos Rodon more of a chance for that to happen than right now? Because I can't either. If there is ever a time where Carlos Rodon wants to be the man that the Yankees paid him to be, and to be that leader that the rotation needs him to be in crisis and win over the hearts of everybody, it's now. Even at the risk of sounding like a corny hype guy, is that not the truth? The time is now for Carlos to take over. And it is time for him to be the man the Yankees paid for him to be that next best behind Cole. And without Cole now, it's time for him to be the best while they need him to be. So even though I trust in Stroman the most because of his experience, his durability, even though he had his injury troubles last year too, but prior to that, his durability, and just who's most sure to stay healthy and most sure to deliver a quality outing time and time again, Stroman may be that guy, but it's time for Rodon to be the guy. It's time. So him being the number one, Stroman being the number two for all the reasons I've already mentioned, Nestor being the number three, purely talent-wise, and hoping that he bounces back as well and stays healthy, hoping he goes out there and kicks ass on opening day. Schmidt being number four, next best at that point, hoping he continues to take more steps forward in his development as a major league starting pitcher as well. And 5 is really the point of contention, because 5 becomes a discussion with Gerrit Cole being out now and being really empty. This could all change if the Yankees end up making a move, whether it be Snell or somebody else, because then you'd have this spot filled in and this really wouldn't be a discussion. But especially as of right now in the state that the rotation's currently in, a lot of people are asking, well, if the Yankees are to look within, should it be Luis Gil? Should it be Will Warren? Should it be somebody else? Shouldn't be Hampton. He's not ready yet, despite all the promise and hype around him, rightfully so from what I hear. But in my opinion, and I could certainly understand people disagreeing with this, and it is fair, I'm going with Luis Gil. Now, a lot of people saying, oh, it's unfair to expect that many innings from a guy who's just coming back from Tommy John. True. But you're not doing this forever, or at least you're hoping you're not doing this forever, because Cole is expected to return at some point. And if anything is to go wrong, obviously you have Will Warren and others to back up. So things are in short supply right now because of Gerrit Cole being down and the fact that the Yankees could have afforded to add another arm to the rotation, as I'd been saying for weeks, even before the Cole injury. Now Cole is even out, and the rotation, in my opinion, is in as close to crisis as you can be, given the uncertainties that already existed, and the most sure guy is down. Your leader. So this now becomes even more of a discussion, and now having a guy being number 5 coming off of Tommy John surgery is a risk. I will agree with that, at the risk of sounding like a hypocrite. I'm going to reiterate, I love how Luis Gil has looked, and I'll say the same thing that I said before his Tommy John surgery. The one thing that this guy had to nail down pat and master from the beginning is his control. Getting his command under proper control. Because let me tell you something, the fastball is electric, the slider is devastating, the off-speed stuff is straight bonkers. It's just a matter of controlling them, because sometimes he has tended to get wild, completely lose the strike zone, at least before Tommy John surgery. Those problems seem to be fixed a bit since his return, which is very encouraging. And the velocity is still very much there. Repetitively hitting 98 miles an hour and locating it pretty well the vast majority of the time. So I very much like how Luis Gil has looked, and considering the promise that we saw, the potential that we saw prior to his Tommy John, I believe that he deserves a shot, at least to start. Now, you're probably going to have to limit him because of him just coming back. You have to be pretty delicate. But the Yankees' job throughout the first couple of months without Cole is to just get by. Get by, do the best you can, use whoever you have to. Piece it together however you have to piece it together. And get by until your ace can return. And for now, at least to start, I think the best arm at the bottom of that rotation is Luis Gil. I am not completely opposed to people saying Will Warren. I would not be mad if it were Will Warren. But I want Gil to get that shot. I think it's about time. I want to see what the guy could do, given a nice opportunity to start the season. And that would be my number 5. And therefore, that's my numbers 1 through 5. Rodon, Stroman, Nestor, Schmidt, Gil. Let's hear what some of you have to say. I'm not going to read many replies at all because of how late it is into the show, unfortunately, but I'm still going to try to get to at least 5 to 10, so let's see. Let us begin with @BaseballTZar saying, Nestor's number 1 right now, although I think Rodon should be Rodon, Stroman, Clark, Nestor, and Gil. All right, so basically your only difference to mine is having Clark and Nestor reversed. But fair enough. And yeah, I know, Nestor's technically number 1 as of now because he's starting opening day. But still, even with Nestor starting opening day, you could still go in that order if you want. But, I mean, I don't know who they're going to start. Second game, third game, I mean, we're going to have to see. But, yeah, that is the order that I would go. I'd be fine with reversing Nestor and Clark, I guess. Doesn't make too big of a difference in the middle of the rotation. But either way, yeah, Rodon or Stroman has to be number 1. I think it should be Rodon because of, you know, Yankees paid him to be that guy behind Cole. He needs to step up to be that number 1 because that would be huge. The Yankees already relied heavily on him. Now, to say how much they're relying on him right now, no word even exists. @GreatHambino28 says Stroman, Rodon, Cortez, Schmidt, Gil, with Beater and Weaver waiting in the wings. Yeah, you could also have Clayton Beater and Luke Weaver. I would much rather, between those two, Clayton Beater. And if people want to put Beater in over Gil, I would be okay with that too. Because I happen to think Clayton Beater has terrific stuff. He's another one who, like Luis Gil in certain ways, just has to get his command under control at times. Sometimes he gets a little wild, he loses control. But, my God, the put-away stuff and the pitches in his arsenal, it's the real deal, man. It really is. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think Luke Weaver would be better as long relief in the bullpen as of right now. That's just my personal opinion. But hey, Stroman being the number 1, I don't think that's completely outrageous to say. Especially in light of what I said about him earlier, so I don't think it's ridiculous to say. But fair enough, man. Let's keep on going. And also just a reminder, yeah, this is just as a preface to this. This has nothing to do with Nestor starting opening day. This is what your rotation would be regardless of who's starting opening day. @Cashman Sucks NYY says Rodon, Stroman, Cortez, Will Warren, Clark, Schmidt. Putting Will Warren again over Clark Schmidt would be, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, otherwise I would pretty much agree. That's basically mine. Fair enough. Next, we have @Zalman888 saying Rodon, Cortez, Stroman, Schmidt, Gil to start. When Cole returns, decisions will have to be made. Will Warren at Scranton Wilkes-Barre if needed. All right, so no Will Warren at all, even on the final opening day roster. All right. But Gil is number 5. I'm glad somebody agrees with me there. Down for that. Cortez being over Stroman is pretty interesting. I do think that Stroman has to be ahead of him, but nonetheless, again, it's not the end of the world. But not bad. Not bad. Let's keep going. @MD Nelly says it's a hole for sure without Gerrit Cole, but Rodon was signed for a reason at that money. The key for me is Nestor. Is he all-star Nestor or not? Well, you didn't give your starting rotation order, but nonetheless, yeah, listen, you are not wrong. I've been saying all this time, even before the Cole injury, that Rodon needs to be who they paid for, but, I mean, when it comes to taking control, especially when the team needs you, there has never been a time that is more necessary than now for that with Carlos Rodon. It's got to be now. My good friend Laura @Laura_Iceman says the rotation has a huge hole with Gerrit Cole gone. I've mentioned it before, but I have faith in Stroman and Schmidt, and I'm hoping for a bounce-back season for Rodon and Nestor. If they can bounce back, I'll feel good about the rotation. As far as the fifth starter, I can see Heel filling that role, but I also wouldn't rule out Beater getting the nod as well. All right, so it sounds to me like you actually have the most faith in Stroman and Schmidt and are hoping for bounce backs from Rodon and Nestor, which obviously is where all of our mentalities are at. So I guess in that way, it's like Stroman, Schmidt, Rodon, Nestor, and then Heel or Beater, if I had to say. Unless Rodon is still at your top as well. But listen, reasonable thoughts, Laura. Definitely understand that. And yeah, the loss of Cole is more astronomical than someone can even put into words, obviously. So the devastation about that is just incomprehensible. At the risk of sounding melodramatic, but I don't care. But, yeah, again, another one mentioning Beater is potentially the fifth. I would not have a problem with that. Giving him some looks there. Rebecca at Peace Now for Life says, my starting rotation is 1, Rodon, 2, Stroman, 3, Nestor, 4, Schmidt, and 5, Heel. I think this gives us the best chance to win until Cole comes back. Rebecca, I'm in full agreement with that one for sure. That is my rotation. I believe that until Cole does get back, I do think that's the best alternative. And again, I will support those who said this as well. I definitely don't blame people for not putting it past the Yankees to potentially give Clayton Beater that opportunity, because I would certainly like to see what he's got too. And a lot of the time I've liked what I've seen from him in spring. All right, last two as per usual. Let's wrap up because it's getting late early for sure. But first up, as always, of the final two is my girlfriend at Vic Salimo. And she says, I'll put Rodon at number 1 because he needs to be the man the Yankees paid for and step up in Gerrit's absence. If he's at his best, he'll be number 1. Stroman is most reliable outside of that, so number 2. Even though I'm not very confident in Nestor because of the struggles he had last year, he is definitely the best after those two as far as I'm concerned, so number 3. Then Clark Schmidt. And number 5, I would be okay with Luis Heel. He has looked really good lately. Yeah, hard to argue. Basically my rotation, and the reasons, some of which I said myself, are true. I totally agree, babe. And last but certainly not least, as always, is my mom, Julia Gina Scudero. She says, this isn't an easy question for me, so my answer is in 2 parts. First part is that our worst nightmare is showing its ugly head. This is why we needed another starting pitcher in the first place, and the front office should have done what they had to do, and now, even without Gerrit Cole, it makes matters even worse with their lax behavior. But after thinking about it and talking about it with you, Marcus Stroman and Carlos Rodon should definitely be at the top. Nestor Cortez, Clark Schmidt, and the 5th, I would say Will Warren. I don't want to depend too much on anyone who's just coming off of Tommy John surgery, but that's just me. I could be wrong. We'll see. Get Montgomery back or Snell would seem the answer if you want to get outside help, but those guys, especially Snell, seem to be asking for way too much. But we could use what they have instead of that going to waste this season as they sit jobless, especially Snell, if they continue to not take someone's offer soon. Thanks, Mike. Well, thank you for the reply, Mom, and thank all of you for your replies. Always, you know that. But, yeah, your thinking makes a lot of sense, Mom, and yeah, before Gerrit's injury even. I mean, we were both saying that they needed another starter, so totally hear you there. Now it's looking even worse. I don't have a problem with the starting rotation you put forward. I do think it's interesting that you say Will Warren, and again, like others potentially mentioning Beater, Will Warren, anyone outside of Luis Heel pretty much, I can't blame you. I know that injuries are already as complicated and as scary as they are, especially in modern-day baseball, and no one, especially pitchers, could seem to stay healthy anymore. Just no one. I understand not wanting to put someone in the rotation definitively just after coming off of Tommy John surgery, despite his promise. I get it. So I'm not going to be mad at anybody. And Will Warren is no bad pitcher either. So even just for that sake alone, I won't get mad for anybody choosing him. But if you want Will Warren as number 5, that's fine. Everyone else, yeah, those main 4 are going to be the 4 guys. Just a matter of which order you're putting them in. I don't have a problem with somebody saying that Stroman's number 1, because in a lot of ways, Stroman's probably the most reliable right now and the most quote-unquote sure thing outside of Gerrit Cole, as I've said at many points throughout this show. So I don't think that's utterly ridiculous, and otherwise, it's fine. Nestor being in the middle, Schmidt to follow, and someone like Will Warren taking 5. I don't have an issue with that. And we'll see if any other outside additions happen at any point, obviously, because it could. We'll just have to see. But that's basically all, guys. With that being said, episode 213, about an hour and 40 minutes-ish later, done. And obviously, I couldn't be more thankful to all of you for participating in the social media segment, as always. I'll be able to read more replies next week, hopefully, if I have more time. But again, just so much to talk about this week in light of everything that's happened. Surely you guys understand. But it just had to be talked about because so much went down for the love of baby Jesus. Ugh. I was just stressing for days over this show, being like, oh my God, how the hell can I even put all this into words on the show on Sunday? Like, what am I even going to say about Cole and Judge and everything else? Well, hope I did a good job. Hope it was to your liking. Hope you enjoyed listening as much as I somewhat enjoyed doing it because of the pain of talking about a lot of it. But I hope you guys still managed to enjoy. But yeah, no doubt about it. The closest of calls this past week, particularly with our beloved ace, Gerrit Cole. Good Lord. But that is all for episode 213 of Yapping Yankees today, guys, nonetheless. If you don't already, please remember to follow me on all social medias. Facebook fan page, Mike Scudero NY. Twitter or X is Mike Scudero or at Mike Scudero. And Instagram is Mike Scuds97. Subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 of the platforms it is available on as well. And those would be YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Leave a like and show your love across all 4 of them like you always do such a great job at doing, my friends. And if you missed any Yapping Yankees episodes 34 all the way up to today's episode 213, those are available on YouTube. And if you, for some reason, by any chance, want to listen to any episodes prior to episode 34, well, every single episode of Yapping Yankees, going all the way back to the first one, all the way up to today, are available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Once again, though, I would like to thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today. As always, my friends, I have been your host, Mike Scudero, and we shall yap again next Sunday, March 24th. When I come at you with episode 214 of Yapping Yankees, a Palm Sunday edition. And again, I'm going to have to be creative with that because I am going to be going out to a big lunch next Sunday afternoon for my stepmother's birthday. So my day's going to be a little crunched. It's going to be interesting finding time to record. I'll probably have to just do it later in the day again. But nonetheless, I will find the time and we'll be right back here on Sunday the 24th for episode 214. The Sunday after that, even though, again, that's opening weekend, so it's tough to miss an episode then. But opening weekend also happens to be Easter Sunday, my friends. And I usually take off for Easter every year, so there probably will not be an episode opening weekend, unfortunately, because it's a very big holiday weekend. But nonetheless, obviously, next Sunday for Palm Sunday, I will be right here with you for episode 214 to cover everything just days before opening day, 4 to be exact. By that time. Even right now, just remember, Anthony Volpe days away from opening day. That's all I can tell you. But until then, guys, until next Sunday, as always, hang in there, be patient, stay safe, look out for your loved ones. Go ahead and kick life's ass this week, as I always tell you to do each week, my friends. Pray for no further injuries, even if praying seems to do little to nothing nowadays in regards to injuries. And let's just try to enjoy whatever is left of spring training before the games actually count, and the real anxiety and fun begins. But another hopefully exciting week ahead of us with as little or no pain as possible. All right. Till next Sunday, guys. Take care, and let's go Yanks.